listen carefully not to what I'm about to say, to what you've been feeling. That quiet confusion, that moment when you stared at your phone, saw delivered no reply again, and you told yourself, maybe she's busy, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe if I'm just a little more patient, but deep down something didn't sit right because you did everything right. You were respectful, consistent, available, emotionally present. You didn't disappear. You didn't play games. You didn't manipulate. And still, she drifted. Still, she chose someone who barely tried. Still, you were left wondering what invisible rule you missed. And here's the uncomfortable truth most men never hear. It wasn't because you weren't good enough. It's because you were operating without the full picture. Men who follow rules without understanding power always lose to men who understand psychology. Not because they're better, because they're aware. And if this feels personal, good, it means you're exactly who this is for. There's a specific type of man watching this. He notices patterns. He remembers details. He thinks before he speaks. He gives more than he takes. He believes consistency equals security, and security equals attraction. That logic makes sense. On paper, in real life, it quietly destroys desire. Not immediately, slowly, silently. While you're still trying, while you're still hoping, while you're still believing effort will be rewarded, it won't. Not the way you think. And in a moment, you'll understand why. But first, let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever felt like she liked you, trusted you, confided in you, relied on you, but didn't want you? Not fully, not instinctively, not uncontrollably. That gap, that space between emotional connection and raw desire, that's where most men disappear, and they never realize it happened. Society taught you something dangerous. Be kind, be reliable, be predictable, be safe, and you'll win. What they didn't teach you is that attraction doesn't respond to safety first. It responds to intensity, presence, energy, psychological polarity. And before you resist that, notice your own experience. Who did she get excited about? Who made her nervous in a good way? Who didn't explain himself? Who didn't over-X? Who didn't over-clarify? Exactly. Not because he was better, because he activated something deeper, something older, something subconscious. And that's what this is about. Not manipulation, not pretending, not acting like someone you're not. It's about understanding what you've been triggering without realizing it. Let's begin with the first fracture, the first invisible mistake. Need number 1. She wants to be devoured, not admired. Most men admire, they compliment, they praise, they observe from a respectful distance. They speak about her like she's art in a museum. Beautiful, untouchable, protected. And they think that's love. It's not. It's emotional safety without erotic danger. It's affection without hunger. It's friendship dressed as romance. When you look at her like she's fragile, her nervous system relaxes. When her nervous system relaxes too much, desire fades because desire needs tension, not comfort. Notice something. The men she craves don't worship her. They experience her. They don't hide their attraction. They don't apologize for wanting her. Their eyes linger. Their voice slows. Their presence says, I see you and I'm not scared of what I feel. That's power, not desperation. Neediness says, please choose me. Desire says, I know my value. There's a difference and music feels it instantly, even when she can't explain it. Especially when she can't explain it. Men who suppress desire become emotionally safe. Men who express desire become psychologically magnetic. But here's the twist most people miss. It's not about touching more. It's about wanting without begging, presence without pleading, intensity without insecurity. And if you've been confused about that, good, because that confusion is the doorway. We'll come back to this much deeper later. Now, need number 2. Be unpredictable or be forgotten. This one hurts because most good men fail here without realizing it. They become routines, predictable texts, predictable reactions, predictable availability, same emotional tone, same timing, same patterns. And the brain hates repetition. Not consciously, neurologically. Repetition jackers safety chakra, low dopamine. low dopamine shocker. So when she randomly loses interest, it wasn't random. Her nervous system got bored. Not with you, with certainty. Men who always explain themselves remove mystery. Men who always show up remove anticipation. Men who are always available remove urgency. And urgency is desire's fuel. But notice this. Unpredictability isn't manipulation. It's having a life. It's having focus. It's having internal gravity. Some days you're warm, some days you're absorbed, some days you're playful, some days you're grounded, not because you're acting, because you're centered. That unpredictability signals strength, and strength creates attraction. We'll dismantle this more soon because there's a dark side to it most men misuse, and it costs them everything. Before we go further, pause, think. Have you been over-consistent, over-explaining, over-available, over-invested too early? Not because you're weak, because you believed it was right. No one taught you otherwise. That's missing. Information. And missing information creates confusion. Confusion creates self-doubt. Self-doubt kills presence. Presence is everything. And we're just getting started because the one that separates respected men from tolerated men. And once you see it, you'll never agree automatically again. Stay with me because now we move into the territory where most men quietly sabotage themselves while believing they're being mature, understanding, easy to be with, and that belief feels good until it costs you everything. Let's talk about need number 3. Disagree or disappear. This is where attraction quietly dies. Not in arguments, not in fights, in silence and nodding, in you're right, in whatever you want, in I'm fine with that. Men who constantly agree think they're creating harmony. What they're actually creating is psychological invisibility. When you never challenge her, she stops seeing you as an equal. When you never push back, she stops feeling tension. When you never risk disagreement, she stops feeling polarity. And polarity is attraction. Respect isn't built through compliance. It's built through contrast, through boundaries, through calm resistance. Notice this. Strong men don't raise their voice. They don't argue emotionally. They don't beg to be understood. They state and they stand. I see it differently. I'm not comfortable with that. No, that's not how it works for me. No drama, no aggression, no apology, just certainty. And certainty is magnetic. Here's what most men don't realize. Every time you suppress your opinion to keep the peace, you teach her, my truth is negotiable, my boundaries are flexible, my identity is adjustable. And once that pattern forms, desire collapses. Not because she's cruel, because her subconscious reads weakness and weakness triggers disengagement. We'll return to this because there's a deeper layer most people miss. Now, need number 4. Create tension or create boredom. This is subtle and powerful. Every interaction has a temperature: hot, warm, cold. Most men live in warm, friendly, safe, predictable, polite. That temperature never creates sparks. Tension is not about being sexual. It's about being present fully. When she speaks, do you really look at her or do you nod while thinking? When she finishes a sentence, do you rush to respond or do you let silence breathe? Silence is not awkward. It says, I'm comfortable in myself. I don't need to fill space. I control the emotional rhythm. Eye contact, pauses, proximity, tone. These are psychological levers. When you slow down, her nervous system speeds up. When you lower your voice, her attention sharpens. When you hesitate before responding, her mind fills the gap. With you. Tension lives in what's not said, in what's implied, in what's held back. And men who overshare kill it. Men who over-excellent erase it. Men who rush connection flatten it. This is why nice guys get friend-zoned. Not because they're kind, because they're emotionally transparent. There's nothing to feel into, nothing to decode. Mystery isn't manipulation, it's self-containment. Let me ask you something. Do you talk to be understood, or do you speak from certainty? There's a difference, and she feels it every time. Now we enter dangerous territory. Need number 5. She needs to feel she could lose you. Read that again. Not logically, emotionally. Most men hear this and think be distant, act cold, play games. No, That's insecurity disguised as strategy. What creates attraction is not withdrawal, it's self-sufficiency. A man who would survive without her is a man worth keeping. A man who elapses without her creates pressure. When you cancel everything for her, when you drop friends, when you abandon goals, when you orbit her life, you send a message: you are my center. That feels flattering for about 2 weeks. Then it feels heavy. Then it feels suffocating. Then it feels unattractive. Not because she's heartless, because dependency feels unsafe. Independence feels powerful. Men with purpose don't cling. They invite. They include. They don't need. And neediness is emotional poison. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If losing you wouldn't change her life, she won't fight to keep you. If your absence wouldn't create a vacuum, you're replaceable. Not because you're worthless, because you made yourself small. We'll go deeper into this because there's a hidden paradox here. And once you see it, you'll never overinvest blindly again. Now, need number 6. Lead or be led. Women don't want managers. They don't want committees. They don't want endless options. Where do you want to go? I don't know. What about you? I'm fine with anything. That sounds considerate. It feels weak. Leadership isn't control. It's calm decisiveness. Let's go here. We're doing this. Follow me. No tension, no arrogance, no insecurity. Just grounded certainty. Men who hesitate create anxiety. Men who decide create safety, and safety plus polarity FS attraction. When you move through the world with direction, she relaxes. When you hesitate, she compensates. And when she compensates long enough, she loses desire because she's carrying you emotionally. That's exhausting. Pause. Notice something. Everything so far connects. Desire, mystery, boundaries, tension, independence, leadership. They're all expressions of one thing: internal stability. A man who knows who he is, doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't collapse. He moves, and others respond. But we're not done, because the final need is the most misunderstood and the most dangerous. It's the one that turns admiration into obsession, connection into attachment, interest into addiction. And once you understand it, you'll never give validation carelessly again. Stay present, because this part changes how you see every interaction you've ever had. Not just with women, with people, with power, with yourself. Need number 7. Your approval must be rare, not absent, not cold, rare. Most men destroy attraction here without realizing it. They think encouragement equals connection. They think praise equals bonding. They think validation equals love. So they give it constantly. You're beautiful. You're amazing. You're perfect. You're everything. Every photo. Every message. Every moment. At first, she likes it. Then she expects it. Then she stops feeling it because the brain adapts. What is abundant becomes invisible. What is scarce becomes valuable. This is not manipulation. This is neuroscience. Dopamine responds to unpredictability, to intermittent reward, to uncertainty. That's why people check phones compulsively. That's why slot machines work. That's why emotional scarcity creates attachment. When your approval is guaranteed, it has no weight. When it's selective, it lands deeply. But here's where most men misunderstand this. They think, so, I should withhold. No compliments. Be cold. That's fear, not strength. Power is not silence. Power is discernment. You don't praise everything. You praise what matters: character, intelligence, courage, integrity, growth. When she shows depth, you acknowledge it fully, calmly. I'm impressed. No over-explaining, no emotional overflow, no begging for reaction, just truth. And because it's rare, it stays in her mind long after you've stopped speaking. Now listen closely, because this connects everything: desire, mystery, boundaries, tension, independence, leadership, scarcity. They're not techniques, they're symptoms. Symptoms of one identity: a man who doesn't outsource his worth, a man who doesn't beg for confirmation, a man who doesn't perform for approval, a man who knows, and that knowing is felt, not heard. But there's a deeper layer here, one most people never see. Have you noticed something? The men who struggle most are usually emotionally intelligent, empathetic, thoughtful, self-aware. They notice moods, they adjust, they accommodate, they care. And that becomes their weakness because they start living in reaction mode. How is she feeling? What does she need? What should I say? How do I keep this? They abandon their internal frame and step into hers slowly, silently, until they're orbiting, not leading. And once that happens, attraction collapses not instantly. This is the paradox. Your emotional depth was never the problem. Your lack of internal authority was. Let me reframe something. When she chose the jerk, she didn't choose cruelty. She chose emotional gravity. She chose someone who didn't dissolve under pressure, someone who didn't over-explain, someone who didn't beg to be chosen. That's what felt safe and exciting at the same time. Most men never realize this. So, they become nicer, more available, more supportive, and wonder why it gets worse. Here's the psychological twist. The more you try to be chosen, the less choosable you become. Because attraction responds to self-containment, not self-sacrifice. This is where perspective shifts. You were never behind. You were misdirected. You were trained to prioritize connection over presence, approval of our alignment, peace over polarity. Once you see that, you stop performing. You start existing, and existence is powerful. Let's slow down because this part matters. Ask yourself, do you live from how do I keep her, or from how do I live fully? Do you speak to impress or to express? Do you give to be valued or because you value yourself? These questions aren't moral. They're structural. They determine everything. Men who master this move differently. They don't rush texts. They don't overthink replies. They don't panic at silence. They don't collapse at distance. They don't over-explain emotions. They observe. They respond. They decide. They don't chase clarity, they embody it. And people feel it before they understand it. We're approaching the final shift, the one that integrates everything, the one that turns information into identity, the one that makes confusion disappear. Not through effort, through understanding. Stay with me. Because this is where everything stops being advice and becomes who you are. Not something you perform, not something you remember, something you embody. Up until now, you may have been thinking, so, I need to be more confident. So, I need to be more dominant. No, that's still performance. That's still trying. That's still acting from fear. From what if I lose her? From what if I mess this up? From what if I'm not enough? Those thoughts are the real enemy, not your behavior, your frame. Men who change behavior without changing identity eventually collapse because effort is fragile. Identity is stable. Let me show you the shift. The men who master attraction stop asking, how do I make her want me? And start living from, I know who I am. That's it. That's the secret. And it sounds simple until you realize how rare it is. Knowing who you are means you do. Negotiate your values for attention. You don't dilute your opinions for approval. You don't shrink your life for proximity. You don't trade your direction for comfort. You don't abandon yourself to be chosen. Most men never notice when they start doing this. It feels subtle. It feels reasonable. It feels mature, until one day, they don't recognize themselves. And neither does she. Think back. There was a version of you before you started overthinking, before you started monitoring every word, before you started editing yourself. That version had presence, not arrogance. Presence. He didn't ask for permission to exist. He didn't apologize for taking space. He didn't collapse under uncertainty. That's the man women feel. Not the optimized version, not the grounded one. Here's the final psychological truth. Attraction is not created. It's revealed when you stop abandoning yourself. People stop leaving you. When you stop performing for love, love becomes natural. When you stop chasing validation, validation follows. Not because of magic, because of structure. Human beings are wired to follow stability emotionally, psychologically, energetically. And stability is rare. That's why it's valuable. Let's connect the 7 needs one last time. Not as techniques, as expressions. Desire comes from self-respect. Mystery comes from having a life. Boundaries come from presence. Independence comes from purpose. Leadership comes from clarity. Scarcity comes from discernment. Notice something. None of these require pretending. They require alignment. When your internal world is ordered, your external world responds always. Now something uncomfortable. Some people will stop liking you when you change. When you stop overgiving. When you stop over-explaining. When you stop over-raccommodating. They benefited from your confusion, from your flexibility, from your self-doubt. Losing them is not loss. It's filtration. It means your life is recalibrating toward truth. You are not here to convince. You are here to live. You are not here to chase. You are here to be tolerated. You are here to be felt. And once you understand this, you move differently, you speak differently, you love differently, you stay differently quietly, calmly, without fear, without performance, without desperation. Men who understand this don't announce it. They don't brag about it. They don't need to. It shows in their posture, in their silence, in their decisions, in their absence. They are not loud. They are solid, and solid men are rare. That's why they're chosen. If this resonated, not emotionally, structurally, if something clicked not as motivation, as recognition, then you've crossed a line. You can't unsee it. You can't go back to performing. You can't go back to guessing. You now operate from clarity, and clarity is power. Quiet, unshakable, permanent.